Hi, well this is the little video that tells you my little secret to mixing a really good amount of green. And in a few of my tutorials I've shown that I mix up a basic green, which I call my sort of woodland green, in a little teacup. So something like this would be really good for you to do, because mixing colours is always a bit of a bore when you've got a lot of things to do, and often when you're doing a project there's a lot of leaves, you know, if you could do this with any colour. So if you were doing a lot of blue or a lot of purple, you could use the same technique. So I've got these little crucibles that are sort of little chemistry set ones, and I'm going to use those for this demonstration. So I've got my set of basic colours here, and those are the colours that I tend to use for mixing my greens. And I've got my mixing brush ready. So I'm going to use, just to get my woodland green, just to get started, I'm going to use French ultramarine, Sennelier yellow, phthalocyanine blue and lemon yellow. So those are the four colours that I mixed to start with. So first of all you want to start with, I think probably it's a good idea to start with the yellow. Let's put a lot of yellow in. So I'm putting in quite a lot of the yellow. I'd say probably about 3/4 teaspoon of yellow. And then I'm going to put alongside that about the same again of the blue. And we'll mix those two together. Now I'm putting a lot in because we're building a reservoir. So normally when we're mixing up colours, we're just taking whatever the brush picks up. But on this occasion, we're going for it. So I'm going to put a little bit of water onto my mixing brush and just give those a little stir. Now your brush is going to pick up quite a lot of paint on this. So what I tend to do when I'm mixing a big amount like that is just scrape out the excess on there, on the edge, and then just quickly dip the brush into the water. So rather than cleaning the brush, we're just dipping it in very quickly to pick up a little blob of water. And this is really just to mix the consistency. So I just want to smooth the two together and get a really nice, I suppose, and the way I look at it is a bit like gravy. I like my gravy to be not too thin and not too thick. Not that you should ever eat your paint. So I'm mixing that together to get a really lovely mid to dark green. Make sure you mix it all in. You don't want any blobs of yellow or blobs of blue. So now to add the other two colours. Now this is very strong, the phthalocyanine blue. I always refer to it as dynamite. A little goes a long way. So you want to be really careful that when you put it out, you just put out a small amount to start with. So I'm looking like maybe just a small blob, like so. And it will come out quite quickly, so be careful, you know, that it doesn't run away with you. Now what I'm going to do is just stir that in and just see how that changes the colour. What that does is adds, I call it a little bit of heat. It just makes it more vivid, the green. And the best thing to do is to add it in small amounts, because too much will make it look very turquoise and it won't be a realistic green. I'm going to add just the same again. I suppose it's the size of a pea. And then we'll just stir that in again. That's making a really nice difference. It's giving it a really lovely vivacious green tone. So now what I want to do is I want to add some zing to it. So I'm going to add in the lemon. Now the lemon generally is a weaker colour than the other three, so you need to add a lot of that in order to get some zing into it. There are other ways of mixing greens and other colour mixes to go for. I guess everyone has their favourites, and this is mine. So what we're going to do here is we're going to put in a really big squodge. Probably about the same as the French ultramarine when we started. A little bit of water onto my brush and then give it a good stir. You can see it makes a lovely difference. It gives it a really lovely brightness, but a lot doesn't go very far. But that's a really nice green. And the reason I call it a woodland green is that when you look at the woods in the distance, it tends to be that sort of colour, a sort of like mid tone green. So I've got that mixed now. So what I want to do now is just show you what we do with that. So I've got a little bit of blue tack on the bottom of the bowl just to keep it steady. Now obviously I've got a lot of paint on that brush, so I'm just going to scrape some off. You only need to dip your brush in a little bit once you've got that stirred up, and then you can put it onto your palette. And then what we're going to do is just water that down. So if I just grab a brush, a little bit of water, and then we add a little bit of water to the side of it, you can see what a lovely green that is. Now you can mix up your body of green into your cup, and you can make it a bit darker. If you've got a lot of dark leaves to do, you can add a bit more French ultramarine. And if you've got brighter green leaves, then you can add lots more lemon and have a brighter mix. So it's really entirely up to you how you mix that green. You don't have to mix it just like I have, but you can use a similar sort of recipe. And if you wanted it a bit more earthy, say you were doing quite a lot of dark greens, you could add a tiny little bit, like a pea-size amount of Sennelier red. Anyway, I'll show you what I do then. I put out my green as a sort of little reservoir, add a little bit of water to it, and if I need to mix it a little bit lighter, I can add in some lemon just straight from the palette, and I can amend the colours on the palette. And if I wanted to make it a little bit darker, I could add some more French ultramarine and just take what I wanted from that mid-green colour. So it's really good, it speeds up your mixing, and it's one of those things that I use all the time, especially when I'm doing big projects. And it's particularly useful, say, if you were doing a really enlarged flower. So, you know, mix up your colours like that. And that way you've got a nice little reservoir. So what you need to do when your little reservoir has dried out, and you'll find that it sort of looks a bit sort of crackled and a bit scratchy around the outside, and you can see it's all, the water's evaporated. So all I do is just quickly grab some little water droplets with my brush, drop them over the side, probably about 4 or 5, and then just stir it in again, and you'll find that it'll wake up. Don't use your best brush for doing that. Use a mixing brush, because then you can really sort of mix it together. And if it's really, really dry, then put a few drops of water onto it, leave it for a few minutes, and then come back and then stir it all together. So that's mixing your little cup of green. You can enjoy choosing your favourite cup to fill in, to mix it into, and hopefully that will be really useful for when you're doing lots of painting.